we're starting.
Roll call, please.
Okay, so we have present Chair Gary Delvaux,
Here.
and we have, let's see if we can unmute it here, it's gonna be a second. All right, Vice Chair Matt Schuler? Okay, that was a thumbs up.
You heard me.
Yep, no, we're hearing now. We have Alderperson Barbara Dorf.
Here?
We have Debbie Dean.
Here?
We have Jim Blumrick.
Here.
And we have Melanie Parma.
Yeah.
All right. So,
Is Gary by audio only?
Gary is by audio only. If you want to see Gary, he can step into the picture right here.
Hi, how's everybody doing?
Hey, Gary.
I thought it'd be easier if I came in and ran the meeting this way, but I guess we could have done it either way. But anyway, bottom line, approval of the agenda for today's meeting.
Move to approve.
Alderdorf?
Alderdorf.
Yes. A second? By someone?
I'll second.
Second.
Melanie.
By Melanie. All right, great. All those in favor, sing by saying aye.
Aye.
The agenda is so approved.
Uh.
Minutes, approval of minutes from February 11th.
Move to approve.
Motion-
Second.
Was that Matt? Yep.
Yes, it was.
Okay. Motion made by Alderdorf and second by Matt. All those in favor, sing by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Regular business, first thing we have is the election of officers. So I guess I'll entertain a motion for chair.
I nominate Gary Delvaux. Second by Barb Dorf.
Okay, motion made by Jim and a second by Barb Dorf for Gary. Is there other nominations? Are there any other nominations? No other nominations. All those in favor of Gary Delvaux being our chair, sing by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Thank you. Vice Chair, nomination for Vice Chair, please.
I nominate Matt Schuler. This is Barb Dorf.
Alderdorf, nomination.
Second, Blumrick.
Blumrick, second. Are there any other nominations besides Matt? Any other nominations besides Matt? If not, all those in favor sing by saying aye for Matt to be our Vice Chair.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposition? No? So carried, thank you. In our bylaws, it mentions that the secretary is our executive director, and I'm not positive that we need to make a motion in that regard each year, but I thought we'd put it on here, or at least they reminded me to put it on there. So the bottom line, I'm looking for nominations that our executive director, Kevin, would be our secretary. So,
I so move. Second.
Matt, who's the first one? I'm sorry.
Jim.
Jim, motion by Jim, second by Matt, for Kevin to be who's our executive director to be our secretary. All those in favor, sing by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none. Kevin, you are our secretary as we.
No other nominations?
No other nominations, no. Okay. And now, we have that write-up as far as the various subcommittees, and I know we sent it out to everybody. If someone would like to change or something, let me know, and we can actually finalize that for the next meeting, because it's the first time it's brought up. So that's how our president subcommittees are staffed, if you will. So if someone wants to change or something different, please let me know, and we could actually finalize it at the next meeting. Is that okay with you, Lisa? We'll finalize the next meeting. Is that okay? Is that okay with everybody? Okay, thank you.
Yes.
All right. Item number 3, consideration of possible action on communications from Alder Johnson, District 9, to direct the Redevelopment Authority to initiate negotiations to purchase 927 Liberty Avenue, utilizing neighborhood enhancement funds, block grant, or other funding resources available to the City of Green Bay or the RDA. Did everybody have a chance to look at that? As far as purchasing 927 Liberty Avenue?
Which you want?
Oh, please.
Sure. So I think we sent out recommendation was to refer to staff to look at our resources. I believe Alder Johnson is on. And so what I'm gonna do is, see if I can unmute Alder Johnson here, and if there's anything that he wanted to speak on this, hopefully, Alder Johnson, I think you should be unmuted.
Yep, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Beautiful. Yeah, I don't think there's any secret about what's going on over in this particular neighborhood. So we're just looking to have the RDA at least conduct some outreach and see if the owner of that property is agreeable to a sale, and if so, what that price is going to look like. So to me, at this point, I'm just looking for a referral to staff as well, just to give you the green light to do some initial work on this. Obviously not looking for the RDA to authorize any type of action at this point, other than to let staff take a look and see what we can come to terms with here.
So I guess we'll entertain a motion to refer this to staff.
Motion to refer to staff by Alderdorf. Second, Blumreich.
Okay, there's a motion by Ordorf and a second by Jim to refer to staff. All those in favor, sing by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Thank you. I think we're gonna handle most of the voting that way. Just verbal, okay? I think it'd be easier. Okay, number 4, consideration of possible action and communication from Alder Worry, District 8, on request to purchase and remove 10077 and 10079 Shawano Avenue.
All right, I believe this is another request for a property acquisition. I did not see Alderperson Weary on the line. I'm just gonna double check here. I don't see, unless there's any other discussion. Again, the recommendation would be to refer to staff here.
I'll entertain a motion accordingly.
Blumreich, so move.
Motion made by Jim,
Second by Schuler.
second by Matt. Any other comments or discussion in that regard? If not, we'll continue voting verbally. All those in favor signify to refer item number 4 to staff, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? No? So carried. Number 5, consideration of possible action and communication of Alder Johnson, District 9, and creation of emergency relief fund to provide loans to assistant small business owners with the impact of coronavirus 19. Mr. Alder Johnson, please.
Yep, hold on, I'm gonna get Alder Johnson unmuted, and again, recommendation here was to refer to staff, but I'll let Alder Johnson speak on behalf of this communication.
I think, what we're really looking for here is something that can assist our small business community. Obviously, there's a few things that have come out. The federal and state, I found all of them to be very cumbersome and taking a lot of time. What I envision here is a scenario of small micro loans that can help with immediate needs that our small businesses are occurring, something that might just require nothing more than a personal guarantee. Again, small amounts. We're not looking to fund $50,000 loans here. I'm even, just in the spirit of discussion, thinking of a threshold of something like $5,000, but that could easily be overseen by the revolving loan fund committee or even approved at the staff level. I think if we do refer this to staff, I do still think expediency is a necessity. What we're trying to do is help those small businesses that are imminently facing dangerous situations where they cannot recover from this. My greatest fear, of course, is that the impact of this finds us with fewer small businesses than we had before. And if there are funds that we can access for this, including the Wisconsin Trust Fund, I'm not sure if that would be a qualifier, but just looking for staff to explore that.
Kevin, the funds that come from the revolving loan fund?
So, so we did look at some numbers, and I believe we have right now, I think Wendy and Krista looked through, probably about $90,000 in our revolving loan fund right now that's not encumbered. Either it's not out in a loan or in a loan that is pending. I know we've talked a little bit, and we'll probably talk at development team tomorrow about the use of those funds. With that, I mean, it's block grant funding, so some of the strings are still attached in terms of job, creation, retention. With that, I think most of the businesses that we're working with do target low to moderate income individuals in terms of employment. So we're just checking on the requirements that would be in place from HUD, just to make sure we don't want to put people in more of a bind if there's certain things that they have to do by, taking this money. With that, I don't know if it would be appropriate. I think we do have another meeting scheduled on the 14th of April. I know we're going to be talking about this at development team tomorrow. In order, I guess in terms of expediency, if I guess the RDA would be okay with some things administratively. I just want to be careful just, how this is worded on the agenda in terms of approval. And if we need to have maybe a special meeting to get something out there, we could do that. But I think maybe even just this week coming up with maybe a framework and sending it out, and then I guess checking with legal to make sure that if we need to make certain approvals, either through the revolving loan committee or this body, we get that done before we start awarding those loans.
So this would be another one for staff, okay?
Yeah, and I think, for sure coming back in April, but if not possibly even beforehand, or something that could be even, discussed or maybe, I guess talked about even at, time was of the essence, being brought back to even as a committee of the whole meeting at the council. Ultimately, I mean, they're the ones who accept the block grant funds, they give it to RDA to distribute, but that might be an appropriate piece as well. I don't know if that helps, or Alder Johnson, in terms of things that you're looking for in terms of this piece.
Well, I think the existing block grant funding is certainly an option, but my fear is that that's not sufficient enough, which is why I allude to the Wisconsin Trust Fund. I know that's where we borrow money for neighborhood enhancement funds. What I'm not overly familiar with is what are possible uses when we look at that as an option, and so that's why I still support just referring to staff and letting you explore what options that we have out there. But I think we need to find a way to get a larger volume of cash injection into a program like this if it's actually going to be effective.
Sure, and I think that'd be one thing then, probably to go back both through RDA and council in terms of if there's trust fund or other general purpose borrowing, just that it's clear for what it's for. I think the benefit of not using block grant funds is, right, you take out all of the strings attached with it.
Okay.
And just one comment, Kevin, myself, Matt, and Brian are on the revolving loan fund committee. And I guess my preference would be to set some minimal level that staff can approve. We give advanced authorization to do that based on certain criteria. And then perhaps larger requests come directly to the revolving loan fund committee. Otherwise, we're going to have a meeting a day.
Right.
That's actually exactly what I envision, Jim, is and again, I throw out arbitrarily the number 5,000, but if we say staff has the authority to loan up to 5,000 and make that decision in-house, I mean, you could turn these requests in 24 hours. I mean, I'd rather, even with small amounts like that, that's why I suggest just a personal guarantee. Anything that complicates this process diminishes its impact. So the sooner that we can get that money into the hands of the businesses, I think the more effective the program will be.
Right, makes sense.
I'm just going to quickly unmute, I believe Director Ellenbecker is on, Wendy Townsend is on, Krista Cisneros is on. Anything that you wanted to add to this?
This is Wendy. I was going to say that there's some, all over the state, we'll keep our eyes open for the best program that we can put together quickly. I love the idea of some small loans coming through, and I like Jim's idea of being able to have some minimal approvals that we can act quickly. So these are all great ideas. We'll try and frame up something for them.
This is Debbie.
Did that come through at all?
Yep, we got it. Great, thank you.
This is Debbie. I would just like to point out that almost every source of funding that is coming out does not cover independent contractors, so such as hairdressers or temporary workers, even if they've had a temporary job for a year. So there's a lot of people that are falling through the cracks with the assistance that's out there right now. And I don't know why I'm coming up as Diane E.
You're not. We can see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see you.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So if we can figure out something for the, that population, that would be very helpful.
Great. Alder Dorf, raising your hand.
Thank you. Yes, I certainly support Alder Johnson, and also in the decision to try to refer this to staff, because we don't want unintended consequences. I'm glad that Alder Johnson has come up with this idea. I think our small business owners really need us. And let's find out what is the best way we can help them without harming anyone else, including the city. So thank you, Alder Johnson, for doing this.
Okay, with all those comments being said, let's entertain a motion to refer to staff, work with Alder Johnson. Sounding a lot of great ideas, and it's something desperately, it's gonna be desperately needed. So, Kevin, how soon do you think you could come back with a proposal?
We'll be talking about it at a staff level. I mean, we've already been talking about it, so yeah, for sure, by the next meeting, our regular meeting in April, if not sooner.
Okay.
Alderdorf, move to refer to staff.
Alderdorf, motion,
Blumreich, second.
second by Jim. Any other comments or suggestions? If not,
I think it's a great idea.
all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried, thank you. All right. Number 6. Consideration with possible action on term sheet with Merge LLC for development project at the shipyard, 239 Arndt Street, 101 Bridge Street, 119 Bridge Street, tax parcel 3-551, 3-554-A, 3-556. Kevin, term sheet, which I think we all had.
Correct. So, despite all the negative things going on, we're very excited about a future development project at the shipyard. As you know, things have shifted in terms of our private development. Partners at the site, we continue to work with Breakthrough on a new location, and pretty confident that we're going to find another great spot for them in the city. With that, we have been working, and you're maybe familiar with Merge, who has been proposing a project on North Broadway. That one we just put on hold for right now while we really explored this opportunity, to bring a really awesome, dynamic, multi-phased development to the shipyard site. So I think probably the best thing to do is what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to put all the RDA members on mute for a moment. I'm going to open it up to the Merge team and their colleagues to go through and really talk about the project. Trying to bridge the technology gaps here. I do have the package that Merge sent, and I can bring that up, or if Merge would rather use it from their screen, we've got both efforts at hand. But I think first thing I'm going to do is just let Merge go through and talk a little bit about the proposal, where they came from and where they're going, and then we can open it up for questions, and then I can talk a little bit more about the terms and conditions that are listed in the term sheet. So with that, I'm going to go through and give me 1 second. I'm going to transition over to the Merge team. Yeah, probably should do that, right? All right, we're gonna I'm bringing you back for just 1 second. So we're gonna just procedurally get a motion and a second to open the floor here to hear from interested parties.
I need a motion to open the floor.
Move to open the floor.
Alderdorf
Blumreich, second.
and Jim, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The floor is open. Thank
All
you.
right, so, whoops, let's get that. Muted. All right, So Joy, you're on. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
All
can
right.
hear you.
Great. We've got Steve, and we've got Dan. And is Brent on, or is it you today, Joy? Oh, there's Brent right there. All right. All right, and we got Brent. So we got Brent, Joy, Steve, and Dan. Anyone else from your team?
That's all.
Okay, and as far as presenting, do you want me to bring up the concept plan, or do you want to try and do it from your desktop?
I should be able to do it from desktop.
Okay, so I'm going to allow you to if I get you as a co-host. And then you should be able to share your screen, and then once that's up, I'll pull it up on our site here.
Kevin, while you start to pull that up, just want to say thanks for having us. This was one of the original sites we looked at first coming to Green Bay almost over a year ago, and it was always an exciting site, but at the time it really wasn't about. We remained interested and wanted to see the process through with the group that had been looking at it for a long time, but we'd stayed in contact with Kevin and the rest of the staff and said that if it would ever come available, that's really the scale and the size of the project that we're completing throughout the Midwest. And so we're excited to make a presentation today, and I'll turn it over to Dan.
Great.
All right, Dan, I can see just the headline or just your header bar for your presentation. I'm not getting any graphics whatsoever. It started with a part of the pullback plan, but now there's nothing on there.
I'm not sure into the front. Send that again.
Okay. All right.
Was that working?
It was. And let me just pull it back on. Started screen sharing. All right. We are seeing it right now. All right. I think we are good.
Very good. All right. Well, thank you for bringing us back to talk about the project here. Brent hit the nail on the head. This is a lot more in scale to the other projects that we're working on throughout the Midwest with development. So the some of this process we were familiar for those who saw this presentation on previous sites. Every time we start working in a community or working on our site, we're first investigating and collecting information before proposing ideas. I'm hearing some echo. Are you guys getting echo from me? No?
Well, we're good. I muted the RDA members.
Okay. All right.
Just to cut down on the feedback. I got a thumbs up, so we're good.
Sounds a little better on my end too. We leveraged what we had learned about the success of Broadway and how some of the different events in the community are going. Learn more about the impact of the container park, what can happen down here at the shipyard, and started exploring that and evaluating that. We look at this site. These are all unique statements to what we were working on for Green Bay previously, specific to the site. We look at the to be an end and a connector, an extension of the success that's been happening on Broadway. That really, once people are added to the urban space, particularly living down here near the shipyard in some amount of density. That quantity of people will really show that the whole area of Broadway onto the riverfront is really a walkable distance. It just doesn't feel that way today because there's industry in the middle and the small destinations in between. But the shipyard park that you guys proposed in this development can really seek to add that type of activity and connectivity to the city. We're excited that it's the shipyard, that it's part of industrial space. We think that a lot of times when developing in these kind of conditions, in a way, you're first mover. People are used to seeing this area as industrial. It feels a bit tough. There are, metal buildings and manufacturing around the area. So we look for architecture and solutions that respond to that. Don't ignore that condition. Don't pretend it's a downtown main street. But actually capitalize on that specific nature of what the riverfront is in this community, and then tell a story of what it can be, and what it can be in transition, and what it can be in the future. So we're excited about that, and kind of talk about that popular history in that sense, that we're both a part of the history there and we're part of a future. We can drive urban flow to this site, and there's a connect to recreation. We have riverfront paths and connectivity going through the city already. The park will be a great opportunity in this space. This site can really feel like an extension of that park. So that people are really excited to be a part of it. I'm not going to go into all the numbers, but we do look at benchmarking within the opportunity zones that we're developing in. And we also look for patterns inside the city. And so here, in the red, really, that there's a disbursement of employment. And our site is this yellow box. In the green, we really see that there's a void of dwelling units in this. There's a bit of a, call it a donut or a valley, but there's urban housing in other adjacent areas, not really here. So by filling in that gap, we can add to connectivity. And then we just look at how many people are present in here and what's happening in here as far as jobs and throughout the region in a little bit broader sense. As much to understand what's going on in the community and for us to have a good picture of who our potential residents might be or people who might use the site and inhabit the site. We then start mapping the context, seeing all the great assets that are in place, Broadway district and things that are happening there, the Titletown Brewing area, the already in place some of the trail components, and then what can happen inside this site. And then we look at walkability and really how far can you walk in 5 minutes, and sometimes we branch out to 10 minutes. 5 minutes is really that walk that you can kind of take a walk in the neighborhood. You can go grab something at the store or something like that. Not necessarily like a destination walk, just a neighborhood walk, walking the dog and that. So really you can see that from the site, you can get basically to the edge of the existing Broadway event, the farmers market inside that fact. Just doesn't necessarily feel that way to everyone right now, and we want to change that. Some public transportation mapping that we really understand what's going on, so that's a good linkage to the site and to the downtown. Then we start looking at what can happen just in an experience mapping and program mapping sense on the site. For our proposal. And this is a final version of the diagram, but this is really the thing that we've been sketching on and dreaming about as a team. in that we can really draw off connections for pedestrians, people, cars too, but really focus on people that can walk in the urban space off of Broadway, just being a block away essentially to the gateways of the site, and then having pedestrian loops, spaces that people can walk through, so that the site is very open and public, and has that would feel safe, that would be enjoyable to walk around inside of itself. So the yellow paths and dots are kind of the idea of nodes and places where you could walk to that place, feel safe, know where you're going, and take that next thing. So trail around the front of the site and pedestrian way against the industrial neighbor there. The existing brick building isn't really part of the site. See it staying, and maybe it transitions in use someday or not, but it's part of the site. And then the building, we thought about how could we make building shape footprint that made it so that residents that live inside the building would all be able to share in the riverfront experience of living essentially in a park space in the riverfront. And so really every unit is, we don't just face one big long face of the building to the river. We actually try to open up everyone's balconies, everyone's interior spaces to catch views of the river. And that not everyone, or that not just a few are given kind of the penthouse view and the view of the river, but everyone's given partial views of the river. And then that's linked up into green spaces that are inside the site. The connection of the floors too is just an interesting idea that we can connect the upper floors of the building while leaving the ground plane open so that people can walk through it. So really you can walk around all the buildings and connect in many different ways throughout the site. Parking against the railroad and the power distribution lines, and parking against the industrial neighbors for now. That can lend to great phasing in the future if there's need for parking ramps in future buildings. But the parking strategy was for now, and back parking up the uses that wouldn't be as exciting as a resident. So really putting everyone out of the river. The purple is a proposal to have a restaurant type space, a commercial space on the water, looking over to the park. And then you can just see that the way the buildings splay out, they're seeking to engage and let people see out to the river and see out to the park. We're going to get way more graphic after this. Any questions leading up to the thinking that's shaping this? Be happy to answer, or I'll proceed.
Why don't we just keep going a little bit, and then I'll take everybody off mute.
Very good.
Thanks.
So between the two buildings proposed, 4-story residential buildings, you can track through our comment through 130 units in the larger building and just under 196 in the smaller building. And commercial space at 4,000 square feet is a good size for what we've seen in restaurant plans. And they can share in kind of the patio and the space. We are looking at exploring the idea of having a parking underneath a garage underneath just the one wing of this building, not fully submerged, but just like down to the footing level, about 4 feet down, about 4 feet up, and that the patio, that internal courtyard, would be about 4 feet as well. So the terrain will just kind of work to hide it, but partially submerged parking. So we look at the inspiration from the communities, the shipyard proposal, other riverfront developments, and how they open up and how they catch those shared views of the waterfront. Inspiration too from the industrial waterfront. The interesting roof lines that are part of warehousing. It's really part of like a sawtooth roof we talked about in a warehouse. facilitates getting light into the middle of the plan of a warehouse. So we're looking at that concept and kind of turning it on its head or turning it on its side to not just capture light into spaces, but to capture those views that we're talking about, the smaller views of the river. So you see what I'm talking about in just a second. And then we researched, how we can embrace some of that architecture of the industrial buildings on the site. Not just mimic them, but work with some of that material palette to make a really exciting new modern building. So this is kind of the idea of the sawtooth on the side of the building, where you can see out the side of the unit. That's kind of special. And then there's a lot of white metal paneling in the context. So we're looking at how we can elevate that, both through patterning, strong detailing, and then pairing that with some other material. So the articulation of some of that in plan, this is just a plan of the massing I was showing you a second ago. Where you can start to see the idea of those paths going through the site. Also see these yellow lines are view line out of those courtyards and out of the sides of the building. So where we have more oblique views of the water, we'll actually have a stepping back and a sawtooth in the plan so that windows can look out the side of those units and catch the water as well. So there's really no bad view of any of the residential spaces. So this is the visualization of the building as we're envisioning it, and we have several views that I'll walk you through. But where that path is conceived as part of the master planning around the Shipyard Park, that connection to the river is really as proposed, and our buildings layer on top of that. This is the restaurant space elevated up to that patio level that I was talking about. So elevated a bit, you can look over the path, look over the water, and then so you can see there's some of those ideas about the patterning in the white metal, but then that's paired with a black architectural metal that tends to be the pieces where we're kind of carving away. We make more glass experiences of the river and of the space. And so as you see these materials patterned throughout the site, in this courtyard, views out of the spaces are in these black slots. The courtyard beyond the next building also has that sawtooth pattern. The black is instead used as the face of the sawtooth. So you can see it, but really the idea is to take these two materials and use them in so many different, several different ways that it starts to layer through the site and helps you wayfind through the site, be drawn into the next courtyard and go and see it. So this is just stepping around that same building and the idea of a courtyard with all the sawtooth windows looking out across the water to the park, the container park that goes across the water. And you can see elevated hallways that you can walk under at the end of the courtyard, so there's no dead ends and the pedestrian public ground. And then now at the riverfront edge of that same building, so the restaurant was back here. These are walk-up units with little stoops and patios that come off of the path, just to try to further activate space. And then some of the larger balconies proposed really on that primary view. And then we can see the building beyond here then has its own articulation of its courtyard, and you can start to see those things that we were seeing beyond in the first image of the side of that building. Those slots also allow those spaces to look out to. And then this is the existing industrial building beyond, and just some coloration to indicate the idea of like a mural in the public realm space. And then our last image, just we wanted to step out a little bit further that and start to see that courtyard open up and start to see what the different pieces of the materiality through the site start to pattern and draw your influence or indicate the phases that go into pedestrian. So, we just think that this articulation paired with the existing buildings that are transitioning from the existing manufacturing buildings, beyond that we can be a part of that dialogue, but tell a new story of the active space that people are just loving to monitor, but not just turning our back on the industrial historical part of the site for now. So that is what I had to share with you guys today, and love to discuss further or answer the questions you have. Hopefully I covered it in good broad brush, but let me know what else I can explain or speak to.
All right, so I unmuted everyone. If you don't have a question, I'll ask you to just mute yourself back because there might be some feedback here. But I think what I'll do is just try and get everyone available. So I guess maybe I'll start, and actually, you know what? I'm gonna get some feedback. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna unmute the RDA members, and then go through, and if there's any, oops, that's not what I wanted. Any other questions from others outside? I'll go through and get them. So let us mute. All right, we'll start with, I see Alder Dorf, so I'm gonna get her first and then bring back up. I'll bring Dan back on. Alder Dorf?
Thank you. I don't have any questions. I just think it's beautiful. If this can be done, it is going to add so much to the neighborhood, to the city. I'm blown. It's just a beautiful development. Thank you so much for this great presentation.
Thank you.
Dan, what are you seeing as the potential schedule and the contingencies towards fulfilling that schedule?
Might turn it over to Joy. Do you want?
Brian, I'll take that. So right now, this year was what we thought of as the year for the city to get the site fully ready for construction. So there's still some work on the city side to make this a buildable site. Once that is complete, really we thought that this would push the project into 2021. That was before the recent news of our current environment that we find ourselves in. But even with today, 2021 is really a logical time frame to start construction. So we don't really have a lot of contingencies. On our end, it would just be working through the development agreement with the city and making sure we're on the same page.
And then is the thought still completion by June 1 of 2022?
Yeah, so once we start on that first building, our average construction is 12 to 14 months. So depending on when we can get started in 2021, yeah, June is a great estimate of completion, but it could be sooner and it could be a little bit later. Matt, one of the things that is important to us is that we see the work with the container park started as well. So whether our work and that work starts at the same time, it's important that, we're developing this and it comes online. It doesn't feel like two separate developments, but one great development and one great clicks out of with both the city's park and this development. So that's really important, and that's a timeline that we're not exactly sure of on the Green Bay side.
Yeah, so this is Kevin. So one of the things we've talked about is we've been moving ahead with the filling and grading for the site. both, the Shipyard Park on the south, as long as the private on the north. Number one, that site needs to be brought out of the floodplain regardless. In order to do any type of development. It's also part of the cap in terms of remediating the site. And so we plan to continue to do that. We've connected, merged with our Stantec team if there's any adjustments that need to be made in terms of maybe where particular fill is being placed. But otherwise, we feel good about being able to, get some of that filling and grading back up, moving again this spring. What we really wanted to do here, is just provide an opportunity to get the term sheet out in front, kind of make that transition from the past project to this project, and really, get a sense of support from the RDA and the council and how we'd move forward with that. But I think, right, everything's a little bit up in the air right now, but we still feel overall pretty good about the timelines of, working on our piece, the filling and grading this year, doing some of the shipyard stuff, with more construction in 21, with these things completed in 22. Yes, I think Melanie has a question.
Overall, broad brush looks great. Just a few comments that I'll make, based on just taking a look at it from, an aesthetic perspective and some of the site components. I like the conversation about the, elevating the connection so that you have the pedestrian walk underneath. As we look at the site plan where you had identified kind of some of the traffic patterns and the nodes, it'd be nice if there was up with building 1 to be pushed back from the street view. You could see all the way to the river and not be truncated by the building, but I know some of that is just based on, the amount of, units in the building, the footprint, the, unique shape of the site. But I just noticed that would be nice if from that view from the street driving through, if you could see through the buildings to see where you have the courtyard, you can kind of see where the street comes through, building 1 corner kind of, off. Again, I understand the constraints you're working with, but just a comment there. And then as we look at the building facade of the different colored metals, I like how you have the dark and the light. It'd be nice if it could be 2 different materials, then same material, 2 different colors. I think you could drive that point home harder. And I also just have heartache when I see metal come down to grade where there's potential snow removal and, just from a overall, maintenance and longevity from metal buildings with metal panels. So those are just, detailed comments, but overall, with that, a large brush looking at it is really nice.
Thanks. Yeah, we definitely agree on base of building detailing for sure. A lot of times when we do bring down material, we'll keep it up 2 feet, but definitely. And I think your idea about the connection from the street, a nice thought too, and I think we'll explore those view corridors further to make sure that connection is strong like that.
Thank you.
All right. RDA members, any more hands, questions in terms of the project? I'm just making sure here. With that then, I will, Mayor, or Alder Johnson, if there's anything you have in terms of comments?
Yeah, I'll just jump in real quickly and express my appreciation to Merge and Kevin and the city team on bringing this proposal forward. Really appreciate the patience on the part of Brent and Joy and Dan. As you said at the beginning of your presentation, I know you've identified as this site is a really appealing one. So just appreciate the fact that you've been patient with us and really turned lemons into lemonade with some of the announcement about our change of plans
with regard to shipyard generally. So I think the design is fantastic. I think the density of the development is really strong. Obviously, the valuation is really, really positive thing. So all in all, just really, really excited and thankful to you all for bringing this forward. I just wanted to throw something out as a question. It's not necessarily specific to the project, but I thought the 5-minute walk radius was really interesting to see where that reaches, not just on the west side of the river, but also the east side. But one of the issues that we face with regard to the Tillman Bridge or the Mason Street Bridge is it's not at all very friendly to pedestrians, and it ends up being a very long walk because you're walking up, an on-ramp and then down an off-ramp. And so I was just curious if you all, anyone on RDA or with Merge, if you've seen any sort of like retrofitted pedestrian accommodations. One thing that came up at Mayor's Institute for City Design that I attended was this idea of a cantilevered pedestrian bridge. And so just wanted to throw that out for discussion, the understanding that, definitely not going to get a decisive answer or conclusion on that, but wanted us all to be thinking about connectivity, not just on the west side, but also to be amended on the east side of the river, the Fox River Trail, Astor Park neighborhood, and the like.
I would say, just to throw out from our analysis perspective and being outsiders, as we've been picking it apart, Walnut seems like where you go from here. Probably not on the elevated walk.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Just because of the pleasant nature of what as a pedestrian or a bike rider. Great opportunity.
So, Mayor, I was just in Madera Beach for the month of March, and they have the Johns Pass right there, which has got a nice boardwalk, very commercial, and the bridge opens and closes to traffic primarily for sailboats and the like. But on each side of the bridge, they have a stair step that goes right from the bridge level down to the boardwalk level. So it provides easier access if you're okay with climbing stair steps. And I think that would prevent kind of the circuitous route to get up onto Mason Street. It's still going to be a climb given the height of the bridge, but maybe there's some ramping that we could do as well.
Okay. Thanks, Jim.
And I have some photos too, Jim, that I took when I was in Cincinnati. Very similar layout with steps that I'll be sure to share. I think that would, particularly, from the shipyard area, but I think it's a good thing to be thinking about. So good recommendation there. I do have two questions for Brent, one for Dan. Brent, this is an opportunity zone funded project, correct?
Right. That's correct.
And do you have certain deadlines that you need to make in terms of when you need to have shovels in the ground?
It passed.
So no, not exactly. It would depend on when we have the shovel in the ground. Would depend on what year the capital gains were. When the capital gains happened that particular year. So this year's projects are mostly happening with 2019 capital gains. 2021 will be an interesting year. Unless things turn quickly, there'll be less opportunities on projects due to a lack of capital gain possibility with what happened with the stock market. So we see 2022 the next really big year for opportunities on projects. But that could change. Everything's changing very quickly. But yes, it is an opportunity on project.
So does the current market situation, will that impact your ability to move forward with this project, or do you already have gains that are ready to invest?
So we have, our group has investments that would be able to be sold for capital gains. But when you start to talk about a 2021 or a 2022 project, you can't have actually recognized those gains today. So we're under construction on current opportunity zone projects and continue to push forward even harder today than we were before because of the environment. But it'll be different asset sales for this project.
Okay. Great. Thank you for that explanation. Dan, from a design perspective, I'm actually going to share some photos with you, Brent and Joy, of a place that in Amsterdam that I was at that was on the water in interestingly, a container-type development as well, where the restaurant is just positioned a little bit differently to provide, I think, greater views of the waterfront. This design obviously has them kind of tucked in on that first step. I think there's really maybe an opportunity here to make a statement with some of the window views to the water. So nothing wrong with what you have here so much as is to say that, hey, this would be really cool if your numbers could make it work. So I'll shoot you that message.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions out there from development perspective? So I just want to go over quick then, 1 second here, just kind of the deals that's been outlined in the term sheet. And, we got Ken on there now, huh? How did I do that? Sorry, Ken. I was just trying to get you muted because you were coming on. Let me come back to, there we go. Sorry about that. So in short, what we're looking at in terms of incentive, we're going to be doing some things in terms of, well, first of all, the land transfer, transferring the land, selling the land to the entity for $1. With that, we will look at some public improvements. These are things that have been contemplated overall as part of the shipyard project in terms of improvements to Arndt Street and Bridge Street, doing some things in terms of making some of our parking that we're doing for the shipyard accessible to this development. And then, of course, moving forward with the shipyard itself. Doing some property improvements. Again, this is some of the filling and grading that we talked about in terms of making that site developable. Filling, grading, that also lays into the environmental remediation piece of this. We've been working since day one with the DNR in terms of providing them information and getting some guidance of what the best path forward is, and in amending the soil management plan that's in place to keep that cap in place. And then working on a PAYGO incentive. That'll be a 70% PAYGO after the building comes online, and it will be capped at $6 million. We anticipate that over the life of this, that we will, it'll probably net more than that. Right now, the property's worth nothing. Coming into our new TID 22, when all is said and done, we believe the estimate will be somewhere around $21 million. With that, and then provided the tax rate, that'll be generating about $505,000 in new property taxes per year, with just shy of $200,000 going to the city. So we are proposing that 70% PAYGO with the $6 million cap. That should then bring in somewhere between $5 and $7 million for the city in terms of helping to fund the shipyard project. So with that, that's what's been presented in the term sheet in front of you. As mentioned, as we kind of work through some of the details, those are going to be ingrained into a development agreement that will be coming hopefully sooner than later. But at least wanted to get this out there and get a sense of support from RDA and the council in terms of our ability to move forward with this project. Just with that, I'll echo, Mayor's comments, really appreciate Merge, being patient with us. Some tight times in terms of, what we're going to do with this site. But yeah, they've had their eye on this since day one, and I really think, we've got a great asset that can help really drive, the shipyard and also, development in this neighborhood in the downtown core.
Kevin, refresh my memory. Does TID 1022 exist, or is that a new one we have to set up?
No, 1022 exists right now. It started 1/1 of this year. So basically, we started it at, I'll call it the low point, where we as the Redevelopment Authority own most all of the property. So that is in effect right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And Kevin, when I look at sections 3A and 3B, 3A is site, you know, right, hey, we're gonna build it up 4 feet above floodplain. Where are we at now on that property regarding site?
So depending on the engineer you ask, I would say maybe we're about a third of the way done. We got a late start last year because the water level was so high and it was underwater and we had trouble getting onto the site itself. Then it dried up and we were able to start moving fill. But then we got the early winter and everything froze around Halloween. And so we had to stop because you need warm soils in order for them to compact properly. And so I would say we're probably about a third done with it. We had contact with Merge and Stantec actually earlier today. And they're basically going to say, look, there's not a whole lot of tweaks that need to be made. I mean, it's still got to be 4 feet, but maybe the types of soil that we're bringing in, now that we know, all right, here's where the building pads are going to be. In essence, I mean, the buildings are going to have to be done on an aggregate, you know, rammed piers or pilings or something. It's more just, you know, in terms of what ultimately, you know, where do we want the biggest source of cap? So Stantec actually is going to turn around and kind of adjust the plan, and then we can communicate that through our contractor before filling and grading starts again this spring.
Great. And then on environmental remediation, do we know if there's any further work that needs to be done in that regard?
So right now, what we will do is we have an amended plan based on what we want to do. We may need to make a further amendment to it based on you know, what type of work we're going to be doing here. The biggest form of amendment would be if we're going into the ground and taking out dirt for pilings, footings of that nature. Could they be put somewhere else and capped on site, or would they have to be moved off? So we've been working, again, through Stantec and the DNR to make those modifications. So once the final plans are done, we may have to tweak that, but we don't really see anything that more extensive or further that needs to be done moving forward.
Okay.
Sure.
When I look at the total city commitment, obviously environmental cleanup, improvements to Arlington Bridge Streets, and so we don't really know what those numbers are until we get the development agreement, will we?
Correct, and some of those have been contemplated in the original shipyard agreement when we talked about making some of those public improvements. You know, right now that we've got this concept plan in place, you know, working with the engineers to finalize, all right, what exactly needs to be done. We'll get a better estimate of, you know, what those costs are going to be. We feel comfortable, you know, that they're going to be in line with the previous project. With that, since that time, Matt Buchanan, our team, has secured 2 pretty substantial grants, upwards of close to $1 million to help with some of that. Yeah, so that'll be able to be applied towards, I mean, the filling and the capping in some cases is close to the same thing. But we feel comfortable with, you know, where that's at and how we'll be able to move forward. But of course, we'll have better estimates before the development agreement comes through.
Any other questions for Kevin or development team, developers?
So are we going to go into closed session, Gary?
We can, if you'd like, if the group would like to do that, we can. It's really,
Gary, if I could just ask a question or two in open session yet?
yes.
Thank you. Kevin, just related to the 70% TIF on the 21 million, recognizing that the objective is to keep the entire shipyard investment off of the levy, is that 30% balance, is that going to be enough to generate the balance of the value that's necessary to keep the shipyard off the levy?
Yes, we believe so. I think one of the things that we look in there is, and we could talk about this in closed session in terms of the negotiations of money up front versus money on the back end. With that, having a $6 million cap and what it equates to, roughly, kind of 3.5 million being offered today. If we can avoid bonding, I think that's something we've talked about is a good thing overall. With that, it allows then for a few years where all the increment would be going towards the shipyard. I think based also on our estimates, we generally come in, I would say, conservative with our assessed values. And this also does not contemplate any additional development that may occur on the site. There's still parking lots there that could be developed in the future on a second phase. So we feel comfortable in terms of bringing these numbers in. And I think that's also the balance of what we look at in terms of how we're spending money to do the actual shipyard piece of it. We've been limited in the draws that we're actually taking and bonding to make sure that we're going to be having sufficient revenue to do those. So, with that, we feel this will definitely give a big boost and be able to keep that project off the levee.
So, hypothetical situation, if additional funding is necessary for the shipyard, do you see that impacting the numbers in terms of our ability to continue to keep that off the levee?
At this time, no. I think, right, there's still some wild cards that could be had, but I think so long as our commitment, and that's, both the RDA and council authorized up to, I think $9.5 million worth of bonding into this or funds into this. As long as we can continue to take out those chunks and phases based on, what we feel could be coming back in. With that, we've got, over $1 million of grant money going into here. So I think as long as we're making, kind of informed choices as we go along, I think we'll be able to keep along that path.
Okay, and this is an ownership transfer, not a ground lease?
Correct, yep. So the proposal would be similar to Breakthrough, that they would have the property fee simple, minus we're going to take the first or retain 50 feet all along the waterfront. So that still retains, it's open to the public all along the waterfront. The rest of the property, they will own fee simple.
And Kevin, right now, when is the thought on when that title would pass to merge?
I think that's probably going to be contemplated in the development agreement bit. I think one of the things will be discussed is who's going to be, doing the work. I think at first, it's going to retain in our hands in terms of being able to do some of the site prep. I think we'll come to a time probably after that site prep is done where that transfer will be made. I'm guessing maybe towards the end of this year or beginning of 2021. In terms of, the increment that's created, really the incentive is designed when the structure is built. I know there'll be some tax value when it gets transferred to the private property, but really it's built on the incentive for the structure. So whether that happens at the end of this year or next, I think really what we want to do is, as long as it's under common ownership right now, there's a lot more flexibility we have when it comes to moving dirt around and working on a brownfield. And so you don't have to worry about easements and access and agreements that way. So I think for the time being, it's easiest for us just to keep it under our ownership and work on that transfer later this year or early next year.
So Kevin, there's no contemplation of phasing in the construction then? It's going to be both building 1 and 2 from the start?
I will defer, but I believe they were going to be done in pretty short order, 1, 2 after another. We'll call it maybe like phase 3 on the parking lots at a later date. But I'll defer to either Brent or Joy on that one.
We always like to reserve the ability year and one in the other year, just so that we don't bring on so many units at one time. It just really depends on the size, and that hasn't been decided at this time.
Are there some questions that we'd like to ask in closed session? Matt,
If I could just ask one more question.
Sure.
Kevin, could you explain the item 1D related to preferred forgivable equity investment?
Sure. So that's something, it was contemplated in an agreement a while ago. And in short, it says, we'll transfer you the property for $1, but we really want to acknowledge, one, the market worth of that property. So here's what that property is worth, and our assessor believes, all in, it's around somewhere $850,000. And so once you have that property, in terms of, even though it's a pay-go, we still are dependent upon increment from that to drive other projects. And so our goal is to have that be at least $15 million. And if it's not, we would at least like to be then compensated for the value of the land. So if it does not hit that threshold, then instead of it being sold for $1, you basically have to pay the $850,000 for the true value of the land.
And that's what the January 1st, 2024 date reflects, is that value has to be achieved by that date?
Correct.
Okay. Is that $850,000 assuming land that is buildable?
Yes, and basically it kind of took off the waterfront property, so it's not as valuable as being on the water itself, but based on the location and water views, and actually, it's a pretty sizable site, that is what it is, yes, based on. And for our intents, the whole site itself is buildable. Again, the structure is probably going to require some foundation work, but there's nothing on the site, there's no areas on the site that have been deemed unbuildable.
Okay, and then just one last, I didn't see it in here unless I missed it, but the public art requirement
It's in there.
for
So-
TIF-funded projects.
Correct.
It's in there.
So it's mentioned in here, and it is also being drafted in the development agreement.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so we certainly can go in closed session. This is strictly a term sheet. It's not the development agreement, but we can. Are there some questions that people would like to ask in closed session? Yes, Alder Dorf, please.
Do we need to procedurally return to regular order of
yeah.
business now and close the floor?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Any more questions for the developer or Kevin before we go back to regular order business? If not, motion to proceed to regular order business?
So moved.
Alder Dorf
Second.
and Jim, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 So carried. We are back to regular order business. So now the question would be, if we felt it was necessary to go into closed session, there's some questions that we'd like to ask in closed session that we can't ask in open session. We will certainly do that. Comments or in that regard?
I have one question I'd like to talk about in closed session.
Okay, then I entertain a motion to go into closed session. Jim?
So moved.
Oh, Matt?
Jim, second.
Okay,
All right.
Matt and Jim.
Gotta read the language.
Okay, Matt, you got the pleasure of reading the language.
I gotta find it here first, Gary.
Otherwise, I can do it. It's up to you.
No, I think I'm just pulling it up right now on my.
Being the newly elected vice chair, we gotta give you some responsibilities.
Okay, here we go. The authority may convene in closed session pursuant to sections 19.851E Wisconsin statutes for purposes of deliberating or negotiating the sale of public property, investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business as necessary for competitive or bargaining reasons. The authority may thereafter reconvene in open session pursuant to section 19, subsection 2 Wisconsin statutes, report the results of the closed session and consider the balance of the agenda.
Okay, roll call, please.
All right, so, Chair Gary Delvaux,
Yes.
Vice Chair Matt Schuler,
Yes.
Alderperson Barbara Dorf,
Yes.
Jim Blumrick,
Yes.
Debbie Dean,
Yes.
and Melanie Parma.
Yes.
Okay, so even though we're virtual here, what we're gonna have to do is, I'm probably going to take everyone on the Zoom meeting who's not an RDA member and put you into the waiting room. to open, we had a motion and a second to go in open session.
Yes, Jim and
Okay,
Barb, yep.
so Gary Delvaux,
Yes.
Matt Schuler,
Yes.
Alderperson Barbara Dorf,
Yes.
Jim Blumerick,
Yes.
Debbie Dean,
Yes.
Melanie Parma.
Yes.
All right, and I'm gonna admit everybody back in. All right, wake up, everyone. Okay, we are back in open session. Thank you for your patience. All right, I'll turn it back over to Chair.
In closed session, we have some good comments and suggestions, and I think we're ready to entertain a motion in regard to the term sheet. Jim?
So I would go ahead and make a motion to approve the term sheet with Merge LLC for a development project at the Shipyard 239 Arndt Street, 101 Bridge Street, and 119 Bridge Street, tax parcels 3-551, 3-554A, and 3-556, and direct staff to work on the development agreement per our discussions in today's meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Matt. Any other comments or questions or in regard to that motion? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Excellent project. Thanks for everybody's development team and everybody's work. It's a beautiful project. We're looking forward to working with the developer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. You're able to stick around if you'd like, and see what other business we do. Otherwise, no pressure, and I got other things going on. So if you check out, and I'll follow up about just kind of next steps with council and then the development agreement. But again, yes, thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Lots of luck.
I know.
Number 7, consideration of possible action on communication from Alder Johnson, District 9, to create a policy guaranteeing city council oversight and disbursement of funds related to affordable housing extension resolutions for TIDs 7, 8, and 12. Alder Johnson, please. Still there?
All right.
So I think staff has put together a plan on this. This was really just taking a look at that affordable housing resolution and setting out some guidelines of how we're going to disperse that. So I would actually just let Kevin and his team talk about it.
Okay.
Thank you. So included in your packet is what we have as a draft for some guidelines or a policy for the tax increment district affordable housing, which we called policy. I know. If you don't like it, Cheryl came up with it. So really two parts of this. One, I think it was important to follow up on Alder Johnson's request in terms of, getting some parameters around how we're going to use these funds that will be coming in to the city. They're not coming in for another year yet, so we have some time to work on this. But I at least wanted to put something out there for discussion. And with that, talk about, creating this policy and how we're going to manage this fund. But then the recommendation today would actually be to send back to staff and bring back after our housing study is completed, which we anticipate to be done later this summer. We don't have the money coming in yet, and we don't have to allocate it yet. And really the last thing we want to do is make decisions based on not good data. So, if there's certain products or things, surprises that come out with the housing study, we want to be able to adjust to that. But just in short, and again, would like to take some direction today. Section 1, basically gives us, the state gives us the authority to create this fund. It's going to be a segregated fund. What we really look at this is kind of like we've been doing block grant, neighborhood enhancement fund, is that the Redevelopment Authority will be the administrator of this fund, but be responsible to come up with an annual plan that it submits to council saying, look, here's how we'd like to spend the money, here's the money we've had coming in, here's what we spent before in the past, and really provide that check from council to say, all right, are there any things that need to be adjusted? Council sets the parameters, and then the RDA goes through and works on the projects. In terms of then just the purpose, again, it's got to be for housing, and most of it for affordable housing. Looking in terms of defining affordable housing, 30% of the gross monthly income. One of the things that we didn't target is just, affordable, yes, 30% of your income, but are we going to put some bounds on exactly who that is? Is that a household? Obviously, it's a household making, 35, a larger one, $50,000 a year. But do we want to, how far up do we want to go in terms of a cap on the household income size? And then just in terms of, priority for different types of projects, I think this will probably be the one that gets most tweaked based on the housing study. What are some of the specific housing needs that we need? And then really just, for particular projects, those criteria that are out there, we really want to invest in things that are what we need. And just like our tax increment projects, things that really create higher property values, do things that are part of the public good, removing blighted properties, addressing contamination, and just also, again, having some parameters that developers, people doing these projects have some skin in the game, and really best to move forward. Another piece, we talked about, and this is, up for discussion, is we at first included the public art requirement in here. In terms of making something affordable or not affordable at this scale. I'm not sure where that falls, but again, I think one of the things we talked about is just because it's an affordable housing project doesn't necessarily mean that it would have to, go without public art, which is again another benefit for the city. So with that, this is kind of the outline of where we started, and are open for discussion, comments, and how you'd like to move forward with it.
So I had one thought, and it goes to Cheryl, because when you bring property purchases to the RDA, you've already got a point value assigned to that particular property based upon certain parameters. And this has got an outline of what those parameters might be for these affordable housing projects. I wonder if you might be able to formulate some similar formula that you could bring a numerical value to the RDA for us to have an easier way of understanding where is it prioritized with all the other factions.
Yes, I think that's totally possible. And when we get that housing study data back, we'll know where the priorities are. So we'll be able to rank that based on the level of affordability we need, the size, bedroom sizes, those types of things. So we could be doing that.
Cool.
This is Debbie. One of the things that was tied to the developer agreements for the condition of putting 1% of public art in was if the development received TIF. And as far as I could see in this proposal, this money could not be used in a project that was receiving TIF.
So that is correct. I think one of the things that we talked about is this fund, even though it's created or the revenue comes from tax increment districts, we felt that if a project is going on within a tax increment district, let's use the tax increment district, let's use the tool in place to be able to fund that project. Things that we thought about were like the Friar House project over at St. Mary's of the Angels. This would be a good project. It provides affordable housing, but it's in a neighborhood and it's in an area that I don't know if it's worth creating a tax increment district. So we wanted to provide a financial tool for housing projects that might not be in TIDS, but still could benefit from some public assistance because they can't get the numbers to work, again, based on construction costs or other challenges.
No, I was just looking at waiving, not having the public art requirement attached to it then, okay. if it didn't have the condition of the TIF in there. Just a thought, sure. Because they're going to be smaller projects and they're going to be running on tighter budgets than something that's going to be receiving TIF. Just a thought.
Sure.
I think though, Debbie, the way that it's written has to be $500,000 for the public art project to be in place.
Okay. Okay.
Correct, yep.
Kevin, one program in particular that I'm interested in, and if the intent of this was to still just be very broad, and if you're eventually going to get into specific programs, but one program that I would like to see in particular is a funding source for above storefront renovations. We have a number of properties where currently it's cost prohibitive to do that. And so what I'm trying to do is identify where can we get resources, local, state level, that would incent people to actually convert those spaces and achieve some of the density that we're looking for in our downtown neighborhoods.
There was a program like that about 4 years ago. Through the
No
city.
longer exists, or
Through the city.
close to the city?
Yep. Specifically for converting upper floors into apartments.
Yeah.
Kevin, was that before your time?
Yes, that was before me, and Cheryl may know the funding source of that. I don't, that's not one I recall, but I don't know if Cheryl knows that one, if that was ours.
It was. I'm trying to think if that was that block grant, Debbie, or was it federally funded, or was it? No, it was block grant. It was something the city had done. When I was on the housing task force with.
This is Wendy. It was Neil and Greg put it together.
What was
Sorry
that
to
one?
interrupt. It was something that Neil and Greg had put together, and I believe it was something that Neil and Greg had put together when they were here, and I think they did carve out some funds from the revolving or from block grant funds to do something like that.
Okay.
I know that the gift itself took advantage of that, and some others. Can you hear okay, or?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay,
And
thank
I
you.
think just
But I
recognizing
can look that up.
that
I know Michelle over at the gift itself took.
Oh, can't hear you, Wendy.
Yeah, so I think, what we're looking for is comments on the draft, and to basically, I guess maybe send back to staff and come back after the housing study is completed. I think I put a date on there, I have to look, September. Again, it may get pushed back just a little bit because we might have our focus groups, but at least it's important to get it back on the calendar and we can give an update in September.
Okay. I don't think we really need a motion then.
Well, I prefer a motion to send it to staff and come back at a date, so.
All right, I entertain a motion to send us back to staff and.
So moved.
To report to us in September, or? You want
September,
to-
yep, you can come back,
okay.
yep.
Motion,
So moved to report to us in September.
Alder North,
Second.
and second by Matt, or Debbie, I'm sorry, second by Debbie?
Yep.
All right. Any other comments or questions? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Wow. Opposed? So carried. Thank you. Number 8, consideration with possible action of the acquisition of 301-303 South Quincy Street, tax parcel 14-491, using neighborhood enhancement funds.
Cheryl.
Cheryl.
That's Ken, actually.
Ken.
Yeah, so 301, 303 South Quincy. This is a highly visible property over in the Navarino neighborhood. When you're coming down Stewart Street from Monroe, this is really one of the first you see when you're going over towards Park. There was a fire that happened at this property, so it is vacant now. The fire was contained mainly to the upper kitchen, but there was some damage that got into the walls. There's some structural repairs that will need to be done. We've been working with NeighborWorks Green Bay on this project, and they have put together numbers generally looking at the rehab here. They're looking at about $60,000 for the rehab to remediate any of the smoke damage to repair the kitchens that have been damaged. With that, there'll also be redoing the exterior of the building, reestablishing 2 front porches for both the upper and lower unit that had been converted to bedrooms the course of the history of this building. So they will be basically they're working with us to get the house back to the appropriate density. So it'll be an upper lower flats, 2-bedroom. They will be looking at that as part of their portfolio. And so originally when we were looking at it, we were looking at using neighborhood enhancement fund. But the further they dug into the project, they didn't expect some of the structural damage first walkthrough. So they're actually going to, NeighborWorks will be looking to request photo funding for the rehab. So the initial item here, 40,000 of neighborhood enhancement funds, and then that was going to be partnered with NeighborWorks $15,000 for the acquisition. We're going to change that to the RDA purchasing the property for $55,000, and then approving up to $45,000 of CHOTO funding to be paired with NeighborWorks $15,000 for rehab for the project.
And the purchase, Ken, would be, you would utilize block grant dollars, correct, Ken, and not neighborhood enhancement?
Correct, yeah. So neighborhood enhancement will be taken out of this. With the CHOTO request, there will be, the low to moderate income strings that will be attached to this. So we figured it would be best to use our block grant funds that also have the same strings on them, rather than using our enhancement dollars that we could put towards other projects that don't have LMI component.
What's the end tax value, tax base?
Yeah. So right now they're at 106,000. They should be able to put it back on the tax rolls, or a new assessed value of probably about 150, 160,000.
Okay.
They will be keeping that though in their portfolios. We'll have that in the agreement that we'll do. I can't think of the word right now.
A pilot?
Pilot. Thanks. You got it.
All right.
So with that, did anybody have other questions on the project?
So then the motion would be to approve the acquisition of 301-303 South Quincy Street, tax parcel 14-491, utilizing $45,000 of block grant funds, as well as $15,000 from NeighborWorks Green Bay.
Yep.
It would be utilizing $55,000 of community development block grant, and then to utilize $45,000 of total funds.
Oops, missed that, sorry. If that's the case, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Yep. Can you repeat the motion one more time just for Lisa to get down?
Yes, and I can send it. Approve the 301-303 South Quincy 14-491, utilizing $55,000 of community development block grant, and then deed the property to NeighborWorks Green Bay. Will utilize up to $40,000 total.
40,000 of CHOTO?
45,000.
45,000 of CHOTO. Okay.
Is that the motion, Jim?
It is.
Okay.
That's the second. Okay.
Art? I'm sorry, or Debbie. I'm sorry, who was second?
I had seconded
Okay,
it. Barb
thank you.
North.
Thank you, Barb. Okay, so the motion and a second to approve the motion as stated by Ken. All those in favor, sing by saying aye.
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 Opposed? So carried. Number 9, consideration with possible action on adoption of the curb appeal grant into the Neighborhood Enhancement Fund programming. Who's got that?
That would be me as well. Yeah, so the curb appeal grant program we brought in front of the RDA last year as part of the shipyard redevelopment in the shipyard neighborhood. Let me just pull up my file here 1 second. Okay, and so initially we put $50,000 into the curb appeal grant fund to see how the program would be received and how it would work in the community. The curb appeal grant, the 75% matching grant incentive. So the homeowners apply for the program to do landscaping, interior buildings, rehab, as well as other site improvements, including driveway repair or paving. The initial $50,000, we were able to have all of it allocated pretty much within the first 3 months of the program. If you look in the packet, I put in some of those numbers, what those projects ended up generating our project costs and what we award for grants. And if you dive a little deeper into looking at the percent, it actually comes up more to being about 50% of what funding is actually going in on the private side. So people are actually putting more into these projects that just the 75% of what we're in. They're actually adding in about an extra 25% towards these projects. So far, it's been really well, and we've actually had 3 or 4 new applications that have come in that we've had to put on hold until we get approval to spend more in that area. So with this, we would like to we want to incorporate this program into our neighborhood funding, so we can do it on a yearly basis, and just include it in our that we bring to the year. And in the future, we would think we could do other neighborhoods, and that'll be once we get the housing study back and do a few more neighborhood studies to see where else the program could actually be utilized. But in the meantime, we're looking to add this into the program, and that for this year allocate 50,000 to neighborhoods.
Any questions or comments for Ken? If not, I'll entertain a motion one way or another.
Yeah, I think it's great that the funds have been used and it's been a successful program. So I'll make a motion to approve the adoption of the curb appeal grant to the neighborhood enhancement funding programming.
Is there a second?
Second.
Debbie?
Yep.
Okay, great. Motion by Melody, second by Debbie, to the adoption of the curb appeal grant into the Neighborhood Enhancement Fund program. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried, thank you. Number 10, consideration of possible action on awarding the annual IT service contract and software licensing for KI Convention Center to Elevate 97.
That's me. So every year we go out for contract, the KI Convention Center. Of course, we have all of the technology there that's directional and folks can use their equipment. Every year we have to go out for a service agreement to maintain that equipment, and then also for the software that provides the backup for that equipment. So we went out for bid through purchasing, and we had one vendor, actually, we only had one vendor, but it was Elevate 97, who we're using now anyway. So my recommendation would be to approve the contract with Elevate 97, who was the lowest responsive bidder, for a 1-year contract for $31,428, which includes the licensing for the 4Wind software.
And you've been very satisfied with them in the past?
We have been, yep.
Okay.
Move to approve.
Motion by Jim,
I'll second.
second by Melody. Any questions or comments? If not, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. I got a feeling this group likes it better when they do the thing online. I just get a feeling. Okay, number 11, consideration of possible action to partner with the City of Green Bay Parks Department in the purchase of 601 George Street for trail expansion
That would-
housing development. Who's that?
Okay, that's me.
Cheryl again.
Okay, Cheryl.
That's me. So I sent out the report to you with the information with regards to how the project was negotiated. This is really a trail expansion project that Parks has been working on to extend the East River Trail. This is the section of trail that runs behind Golden House on University Avenue. So this parcel, when you look at your map, is like one of the last parcels they need we need to acquire to get to that land. It's been a very difficult acquisition in that it's a trust property, and there are a number of siblings involved, and we've been through a number of appraisals back and forth. But I think with partnering with the Parks Department, with the utilization that they have of their DNR grant dollars, along with money that they had allocated for this purchase, if we can add some additional dollars to this with enhancement funds, we would then have 2 buildable lots that we could do some housing development on after they use the section they need for the trail. So remember, we cannot use eminent domain powers for trail purchases anymore. So that's why this is a property, it's like the last one, and it would be really great if we could just tie this whole project up, get these commercial buildings that are on the site out of there, and then have some additional housing development. One small parcel, single family on St. George, and then a larger area for development on University Avenue. Any questions?
Yeah, who did that appraisal for $570 some thousand?
Well, that's listed on the sheet that I sent you. We can go into closed session if you'd like to.
No, that's okay.
Talk about those.
I did read it, but I have no access to any of my documents right now. My computer screen is just froze with this in front of it.
Oh.
I can't get at anything else.
So,
I know.
If you'd like to go into closed session, I sent the information sheet out because we weren't
You did,
sure
and
we were
you did, and I read it. No, you did, and I read it. I'm just like, wow, where does that come from? Anyway, move to approve.
Second.
Debbie made the motion to approve? I'm sorry.
Yep.
Okay, and Alder Dorf?
Alderdorf seconded it.
Excellent.
And I just need to say though that this is contingent on the Parks and Council approving this. So this needs to be a partnership.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So carried. Number 12, consideration of possible action on transfer of $50,000 of CDBG funds from the 2019 CDBG eligible area projects budget to the 2019 ED facade and demo budget.
Facade grants. Yeah.
This would be Matt.
Can you hear me? It all up.
All right, you're up.
Yep.
Okay.
Good. All right, so last year, RDA had allocated $50,000 toward our facade and demolition program. As you're aware, we've had a very successful year with those funds. We've funded 4 strong facade projects. We've had 2 larger ones with Richard Craniums and the Farmery, and a couple smaller ones with Old Town Crossing on Main Street and Motel 6 on Dousman. So after funding those projects, we've obligated about all of our funds. I think we have about $800 left for this year.
Right.
We're still getting applications in despite the COVID-19 craziness. There's still business owners that are interested in utilizing this program. So we're back asking for more funding. We'd like to request $50,000 be reallocated to more facade projects.
Well, you certainly had a lot of great success last year, so we're anticipating the same. Any motions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Alderdorf, and second by Jim. Any questions or comments? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so carried. Informational. I don't have any questions with the financial report or check register. I don't know if anybody else did. If not, we'll get into the director's report. Lots of project updates here.
Yeah, so thank you. Look, I mean, just overall, thanks for all taking the time here. I think we muddled through this pretty well. Thanks to Lisa, Shelby for keeping this on track. Of course, right, we have a large, huge agenda when something like this happens. But look, I mean, I think this is how we're going to be operating right now for the foreseeable future. So I'll plan on this for April, if we need a special meeting in between. Again, I think we're going to continue to put pieces together for some of these development projects as we've been working on them. I think this merge project will be a really great boost for us to get back on it with the shipyard and how we move ahead there. Overall, just look, we're operating. Most of our staff is remote right now with limited in-office presence, but we're still being able to work on some things, and we'll do the best that we can with the resources that we have to keep moving forward. So, with that, we anticipate moving some things ahead in the coming months, and just appreciate your patience and working with us. I mean, I know we're all getting this. Sometimes it's nice too just to see other faces and get together virtually, right? So that we're all still here. So if I don't have any other specific updates unless anybody has any particular questions. Yes, Jim.
Question for you, Kevin. These can be a little perturbing, these conference calls, when you get a lot of feedback.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to test that ahead of time to see where it's coming from. But in particular, when Dan was making his presentation and when Ken was discussing his items too, I was getting a lot of feedback.
Okay.
So I know when you don't have a technology like Zoom, everybody's got to put their phones or whatever on mute. And then it makes all the difference in the world in terms of not getting that feed. I'm not sure where to start on it, but it would make our meetings a lot smoother, I would think, if we could solve that problem.
I am getting a nod from Shelby across the room that we are working on some upgrades here. We weren't set up, and we're in council chambers just because we wanted to be able to broadcast the slides and use pictures to you, which we can't do in the other conference rooms. But Shelby and IT, they are working to get us some upgrades so that we can have a more integrated conference experience. Because I know right after 2+ hours, some of that reverb and things can get a little testy. But we are working on it here to hopefully improve that for next time around. So thank you. And if there's any others, I know, I think, Ken texted me, there was some echo and Diana. We're trying to address those as we can. Thankfully, at least the recording of this is coming through okay. And so for the public, I mean, in the records, it'll be good. But just, yes, we'll be continuing to work on that for future meetings.
So are we not going to use Civic Clerk to record our votes any longer then?
Yeah, that was kind of a decision I made, and maybe I shouldn't have, whatever. Lisa, if we have remote, can we still use it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yes, we can. I think, it was a lot, I think, for us just to kind of take in the Zoom this time. So I think, we're recording through voice votes. I think next time, again, I mean, if some of you might be on a phone or a laptop, it may be tough to go back and forth between the meeting and Civic Clerk. If you can, we'll maybe try it next time, but we figured, and look, put me at fault for this, one technology at a time. I just wanted everybody able to get online and talk to each other, and at least, in the spirit of public process, I think we were very transparent today and made it work. So we'll take some baby steps, and next time maybe try and get Civic Clerk going at the same time.
Yeah, Kevin, I actually have 2 laptops set up here, one for the Zoom video
Nice.
And you'll swipe
So do
right
I.
for the handle. Do you?
That's
Good.
what, yep,
Okay.
I have two set up.
Yeah.
Well, then maybe we might, before the next meeting, just give a little technology check, and then if those who are capable of doing it can do it, and if not,
Yeah.
we'll just record voice votes from that. So we'll take a little poll before maybe the next meeting.
I just have to pay laptop rent to my wife, that's all.
Good luck with that. All right.
Well, and maybe upgrade your system at home, right? Because that's the other thing, if you've got a slow internet at home.
Oh, I got 100 meg service, I'm good.
Yeah, right.
With that, I think a motion to adjourn, please.
Move to adjourn.
Alder Dorf
Second.
and Jim, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Ta-da,
We
aye.
have a- Yeah, I know. Thank you. Thanks very much, guys.
All right. Thanks
Kevin,
again.
Kevin, you
Yes.
have a couple of items under director's report.
I think there were some property things. I think just in the interest of time, we're gonna hold those. We'll just
Hold
hold
them?
those till next
Okay.
time.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.